Imagine a Bible unlike any other, one that contains a secret to some of the most stunning discoveries in Christian history. Truths so deep that they were kept concealed from the world for decades. This Bible is not the usual 66-book version seen in most Christian traditions. No, this one has 88 volumes, including literature that were forbidden, repressed, or judged too hazardous by early Christian authorities. But why? What if I told you that these forbidden books contain secrets about fallen angels, the Nephilim, and prophesies describing the end of the world in ways you've never heard before? What if these texts conveyed concealed information about the cosmic fight between good and evil, celestial hierarchies, and the role of angels and demons in determining humanity's fate? Today, we will explore the secret volumes of the Ethiopian Orthodox Bible, which includes writings full of mysteries that have been lost in the majority of the Christian world for ages. But why were these works banned? What about these writings caused Western church leaders uneasy enough to eliminate them from the Bible we know today? Stay with me, because at the conclusion of this video, you'll understand why these writings were regarded so dangerous, as well as the startling truths they contain, which might shift your perspective on the whole Bible, the structure of the Ethiopian Bible. To begin, most Christians are familiar with the Christian Standard Bible or the King James Bible, both of which comprise 66 books, 39 in the Old Testament and 27 in the New Testament. However, the Ethiopian Orthodox Bible has an amazing 88 books. That's correct, 22 additional books. And they aren't simply footnotes or supplementary comments. They're full-fledged holy books that were formerly respected but were subsequently prohibited by Orthodox Christianity. Some of these texts date back to early Jewish and Christian traditions and have been utilized by communities for millennia. They include unique predictions, cosmic visions, and tales from the old world. However, they were writings at early church councils, notably after the Council of Nicaea in 325 AD, judged too contentious, mystical, or too closely associated with Jewish customs. Ethiopia's connection to biblical history. However, Ethiopia's relationship to the Bible dates back far longer than you would expect, before European invasion, and long before Christianity extended across the Roman Empire. The ancient kingdom of Ethiopia had already created a spiritual tradition that was closely related to the Bible. Ethiopian Christianity dates back to the 4th century AD, when the kingdom of Aksum formally embraced Christianity as its national religion. In reality, Ethiopia was one of the first countries in the world to accept Christianity, centuries before many Western nations. Since then, the Bible, written in Guizi, an old Ethiopian language, has been important to Ethiopian religious life. However, Ethiopia's connection to biblical history likely extends beyond Christianity. This relationship, according to old Ethiopian mythology, dates back to the Queen of Sheba, who journeyed from Ethiopia to see King Solomon in Jerusalem about the 10th century BC. This visit is described briefly in the Western Bible, but Ethiopian tradition elaborates on the tale. According to the Ethiopian Bible, the Queen of Sheba and King Solomon had a child named Menelik I, who became Ethiopia's first emperor. But here's where things get interesting. Menelik is claimed to have returned the Ark of the Covenant, which contained the stone tablets of the 10 Commandments, to Ethiopia. Ethiopians saw this as more than simply a historical occurrence. It was a heavenly mission. Ethiopia, according to their legend, was selected by God to preserve the Ark of the Covenant, which clearly links Ethiopia's spiritual destiny to Israel's holy past, the preservation of sacred texts. With such a deep link to biblical law, it's no wonder that Ethiopia became a spiritual bastion, embracing Christianity early on while also protecting ancient scriptures that other Christian traditions later abandoned. Ethiopia kept these hallowed works in its Orthodox Bible as it sought to distance itself from Western European influences. These scriptures remained a part of Ethiopian religious life for centuries, even as they were gradually phased out of the Western Christian canon. But this raises the issue of why these texts were removed from the mainstream Bible. The causes are both difficult and interesting. Some of these books were prohibited because they included concepts that were considered too mystical or speculative. Celestial creatures, fallen angels, and the Nephilim, enigmatic enormous beings born from the union of humans and angels, are described in books such as the Book of Enoch. These apocalyptic visions reveal the mysteries of heaven and hell, the origins of sin, and God's ultimate judgment, which the early church deemed too perilous to accept. Others were expelled because they remained too close to Judaism. Books like Jubilees and Maccabees encourage rigorous adherence to Jewish traditions such as the Sabbath, dietary habits, and circumcision. At a period when the early Christian church was attempting to separate itself from Judaism, these scriptures were seen as a danger to Christianity's emerging identity. Finally, some of these publications were seen as a danger to orthodoxy and the united theology that the early church sought to build. Church authorities were concerned that adding these writings might lead to differing views of theology, notably on the role of angels, the afterlife, and God's ultimate judgment. Allowing these writings to stay in the canon risked fostering heresy or discord within the early church. Colonialism and suppression of the Ethiopian Bible. But there is more. During the colonial period, when European nations, notably Italy, strove to conquer Ethiopia, the Ethiopian Orthodox Bible became a target. It was seen as a spiritual challenge to European rule. The Bible's distinctive substance, which linked Ethiopia spiritually to Israel and early Christianity, represented resistance to European religious and cultural control. Colonial powers attempted to destroy Ethiopian religious independence by marginalizing the Orthodox Bible and imposing Western religious ideals. This is quite profound. Bible Tales. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with anybody who wants to go further into the Bible's hidden truths. To understand why the Ethiopian Orthodox Bible contains so many writings that were removed from the mainstream Christian Bible, we must first examine Ethiopia's unique role in biblical and Christian history, the spread of Christianity in Ethiopia. Let's start in the 4th century AD, when most of the globe hadn't really embraced Christianity. In the middle of this, the kingdom of Aksum, a strong civilization based in what is now modern-day Ethiopia, became one of the world's first countries to formally accept Christianity as its state religion. This event cemented Ethiopia's Christian character and established it as one of the world's oldest continually Christian nations. But how did this come about? According to ancient Ethiopian history, the rise of Christianity in Ethiopia was not caused by European missionaries, as many believe. Instead, the Ethiopian Orthodox Church attributes its origins to the Apostle Philip and the conversion of the Ethiopian eunuch, as reported in Acts 8 verses 26 to 40. This Ethiopian court official, baptized by Philip, took the Christian religion back to Ethiopia, establishing the Ethiopian Christian tradition. Within a few decades, this little movement grew into the official religion of the great kingdom of Aksum. Christianity was legally established in Ethiopia via the Coptic Church of Alexandria, which resulted in the Bible being translated into Guizi, the ancient Ethiopian language. And when Christianity grew across the Aksumite Empire, it was not limited to the 66 books included in their Bible. Ethiopia's unique past gave them access to a diverse collection of Jewish and early Christian books. Ethiopia's connection to the Queen of Sheba. This early conversion to Christianity also helped Ethiopia preserve its spiritual isolation from the rest of the Christian world, while the Roman Empire and the Western Church strove to establish a unified biblical canon. Ethiopia remained on the margins of these discussions, free to keep its historical customs and texts. As a consequence, the Ethiopian Orthodox Bible includes not only the recognized books of the Old and New Testaments, but also supplementary works that provide valuable insights into early Jewish and Christian theology. However, Ethiopia's relationship to biblical history extends far deeper than the early introduction of Christianity. To see the complete picture, we must go back far further, 1,000 years before Christ. In fact, according to Ethiopian legend, Ethiopia's biblical link begins with a spectacular lady known as the Queen of Sheba. This great queen appears briefly in the Western Bible in 1 Kings 10 verses 1 to 13 and 2 Chronicles 9. According to these traditions, she journeyed from the faraway realm of Sheba, which Ethiopians believe to be modern-day Ethiopia and Yemen, to see the famous King Solomon in Jerusalem. While the Western Bible simply offers us a glimpse of her visit, the Ethiopian Bible provides a considerably more detailed account. According to the Keber Nagast, an ancient Ethiopian scripture that serves as a foundation of Ethiopia's national and spiritual identity, the Queen of Sheba, known in Ethiopia as Makeda, and King Solomon had a child together, Menelik, who would later become Ethiopia's first emperor. The notion that Menelik visited his father Solomon in Jerusalem as he got older adds to the story's remarkable quality. When he returned to Ethiopia, He is claimed to have carried with him one of the most significant objects in biblical history, the Ark of the Covenant. That's correct according to Ethiopian legend. The Ark of the Covenant, the holy box containing the stone tablets of the Ten Commandments, has been stored in Ethiopia for generations. The Ark of the Covenant and Ethiopia's spiritual future. This deep and lasting link to Israel's holy heritage has profoundly influenced Ethiopian Christianity. For Ethiopians, the Ark of the Covenant signifies a divine purpose that connects Ethiopia with God's chosen people, Israel. Ethiopia views itself not as a peripheral country, but as a key role in God's plan for the world, a nation destined to defend the Ark and preserve biblical principles. While Western Christianity was busy constructing and reducing the biblical canon, Ethiopia was preserving the whole body of early Christian and Jewish literature. And because of Ethiopia's relative isolation from Europe, it was able to resist pressure to comply to the Council of Nicaea's canon rulings. The Council of Nicaea, convened in 325 AD, was a watershed point for Christianity in the Roman Empire. It was here that church officials gathered to consolidate Christian teaching and ultimately select which works would be regarded inspired and which would be excluded. The Western Church started to construct a Bible that was free of passages judged too Jewish, mystical, or speculative. Books such as the Book of Enoch, the Book of Jubilees, and the Maccabees were considered problematic for a variety of reasons, including delving too deeply into the nature of angels and emphasizing severe Jewish observances. However, Ethiopia was mainly untouched by these judgments. It maintained true to its Coptic Christian origins, allowing to preserve a considerably broader variety of biblical texts. The Ethiopian Orthodox Bible today. This is why the Ethiopian Orthodox Bible contains not only the 66 books contained in the Christian Standard Bible, but also 22 works that were later forbidden or omitted from the Western canon. Ethiopia became a spiritual fortress, preserving ancient traditions free of Western European ideas. This is why the Ethiopian Orthodox Bible differs from those used by the majority of Christians today. It is a living monument to a Christian tradition that has stayed anchored in the beginnings of the religion, unaffected by many of the doctrinal arguments and political battles that produced the Western Bible. The Ethiopian Orthodox Bible's continued inclusion of these banned and excluded texts is more than just an interesting historical quirk. It serves as a reminder that there were once many different interpretations of what should be included in the Bible, and that many of the texts rejected by the Western Church still have profound spiritual significance. For example, the Book of Enoch provides a graphic depiction of fallen angels, their dealings with humans, and their ultimate judgment. It was a literature that inspired early Christian beliefs on the nature of evil and the end times. Meanwhile, the Book of Jubilees offers a Jewish viewpoint on ancient history, including unique insights into the patriarchs' lives and the role of angels in guiding mankind. These works provide a peek into a vanished period of Christian history, when theology was still being developed and the bounds of orthodoxy were being disputed. In Ethiopia, these works were never prohibited. They have always been a part of its religious life, considered with the same veneration as the more well-known scriptures of the Old and New Testaments. Why the books were banned? So, why were these books banned? What about these hallowed scriptures prompted the Western Church to consider them inappropriate for the Bible? The causes are as complicated as they are interesting, including not just religious issues, but also political and cultural conflicts. In this part, we'll delve into the true reasons why these texts were discarded by early Christian leaders and why Ethiopia decided to save them. One of the initial reasons these texts were banned was because of their mystical content. Their teachings were extremely spiritual and frequently speculative. Many of the forbidden writings, such as the Book of Enoch and the Book of Jubilees, cover esoteric subjects with a strong emphasis on celestial world, angel hierarchy, and relationships between heavenly entities and humans. For example, the Book of Enoch has a detailed description of the Watchers, a group of fallen angels who came to Earth, mingled with humanity, and eventually caused widespread corruption via their progeny, the Nephilim. These angels not only rebelled against God, but they also revealed prohibited knowledge to humanity, including warfare, sorcery, and astrology. This style of storytelling is very different from the more plain theme of redemption that pervades the Western Bible. The Western Church, especially after the Council of Nicaea in 325 AD, regarded these speculative ideas with mistrust. They were seen as diversions from the essential elements of the Christian religion, namely Jesus Christ's life, death, and resurrection. Early Christian leaders were concerned that concentrating too much on angels, cosmic conflicts, and the apocalypse might confuse Christians or lead to mystical readings of Scripture, diverting emphasis away from the message of redemption. This focus on speculative theology caused the Western Church to reject writings as the Book of Enoch, which was once extensively read by early Christian communities, notably among the Essenes, a Jewish group that many academics think impacted early Christian philosophy. While works like Enoch provided extensive insights into the spiritual realms and the fall of angels, the Roman Catholic and Eastern Orthodox churches ultimately judged that these texts included too much conjecture about the unseen world. Ethiopia, on the other hand, saw these books as essential to comprehending the spiritual war between good and evil, rather than as diversions. Ethiopian Christianity accepted the mystical features of these books, believing that they illuminated the celestial world and the mystery workings of God's creation, the connection with Jewish traditions. Another key reason many of these texts were prohibited was their direct connection to Jewish culture. The Book of Jubilees and the Maccabees stressed rigorous observance of Jewish regulations, such as the Sabbath, circumcision, and dietary customs. These texts were written while Judaism was still not totally split from what would become Christianity, and they show a worldview that placed a high value on adhering to Mosaic law. For example, the Book of Jubilees, often known as the Little Genesis, retells biblical events from creation until the imparting of the law on Mount Sinai, but it extends beyond the conventional tales found in Genesis and Exodus. Jubilees emphasizes the significance of Jewish festivals, the Sabbath, and ritual cleanliness in ways that make it apparent that these commandments must be maintained indefinitely. It also proposes a solar calendar with a 364-day year, which it says was the original system God established for the Jewish people, as opposed to the lunar calendar used later. As early Christianity grew, it wanted to distinguish itself from Judaism. The early Christian movement sought to open itself up to Gentiles, which required a departure from strict adherence to Jewish practices and rules. The Apostle Paul advocated for freedom from the law, arguing that redemption comes via trust in Christ rather than allegiance to the Mosaic law. As the Western Church developed, writings that highlighted Jewish regulations, such as Jubilees and Maccabees, were seen as obsolete remnants of the past. Ethiopia, on the other hand, has a far stronger Jewish heritage. The Ethiopian Orthodox Church may trace its origins back to King Solomon via Menelik I, Solomon's son with the Queen of Sheba. Because of this, Ethiopia's Christian history has always been profoundly based in Jewish rituals, and it finds no need to remove itself from them. As a consequence, these passages became part of the Ethiopian Orthodox Bible, giving Ethiopians a rich history that incorporates both Old Testament law and Christian redemption. In fact, the Maccabees are highly regarded in Ethiopia. While Western Christianity mainly dismissed these scriptures as apocryphal, Ethiopia continued to utilize them as powerful reminders of Jewish struggle, adherence to God's word, and supernatural intervention in the face of persecution. The Maccabees were hailed as heroes for defending the Jewish religion against foreign governments, and their tale continues to inspire Ethiopian Christians today, the threat to Christian orthodoxy. Another important reason why these publications were prohibited was because they were seen as a challenge to Christian orthodoxy. The early church was in a state of change and consolidation. Therefore, it was critical to construct a cohesive theology that could keep the religion together. As Christianity spread throughout the Roman Empire, various sects and interpretations emerged, some of which were considered heretical by the emerging Orthodox Church. Many of the texts in the Ethiopian Orthodox Bible reflect alternate theological perspectives, which the Western Church believed would confuse or split the early Christian communities. Some of these books, for example, include various conceptions of the afterlife, divine judgment, and angels' roles. The Book of Enoch, for example, goes into considerable detail about the Watchers, fallen angels, and Nephilim, all of which are considered too speculative for the growing Christian belief. The early church leaders intended to keep the emphasis on Christ's message of redemption rather than what they considered as cosmic speculation about angels and heavenly regions. The purpose was to produce a cohesive religion that could be applied to all Christian communities, which included removing works that gave alternative narratives or put too much emphasis on the invisible spiritual realm. This is why the Council of Nicaea and subsequent church councils were so crucial. They contributed to the formation of a Christian canon, designed to lead Christians to a clear grasp of Christ's role in redemptive history. However, they eliminated literature that delved into the spiritual depths of the cosmos, instead focused on the gospel's more immediate lessons. However, Ethiopia did not see these texts as a challenge to orthodoxy. Indeed, the Ethiopian church thought that these scriptures provided a deeper comprehension of God's cosmic plan by offering insights into the heavenly world, the punishment of fallen angels, and the end times. For Ethiopia, these works were never intended to be hypothetical diversions, but rather to supplement the teachings of the New Testament, providing a more complete picture of the cosmic fight between good and evil, colonialism, and the marginalization of the Ethiopian Bible. Finally, we must acknowledge the role that colonialism had in marginalizing the Ethiopian Orthodox Bible. During the colonial period, especially during Italy's invasion of Ethiopia in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, the Ethiopian Orthodox Church and its holy writings were seen as obstacles to European domination. Ethiopia's spiritual independence and link to old Christian traditions were seen as a form of resistance by European colonial powers. Ethiopia was not a passive colony waiting to be tamed by European missionaries. It was a Christian country with a distinct and historic heritage that predates most of Europe's Christian history. The Ethiopian Orthodox Bible was seen as a sign of resistance since it connected Ethiopia directly to Israel and the early Christian church, a spiritually strong but politically uncomfortable link for European occupiers. The Ethiopian Bible was marginalized or banned by colonial powers in order to diminish Ethiopia's spiritual identity and impose Western religious beliefs. Ethiopia's physical resistance to colonial control made it a symbol of African freedom, while its religious resistance, represented by the preservation of its Orthodox Bible, gave it a spiritual stronghold. Ethiopia's unique Bible, which included forbidden literature and other materials, was seen as a danger to the Western religious order, challenging the supremacy of Catholicism and Protestantism. Do you believe Ethiopia's spiritual independence challenged colonial forces? Share your thoughts on how this influenced the suppression of the Ethiopian Orthodox Bible, the secrets of banned books. Now that we've learned why these books were forbidden, let's delve into the mysteries they contain. Each chapter in the Ethiopian Orthodox Bible reveals significant truths concerning spiritual worlds, ancient history, and God's great design. Let's go further into these forbidden books and what they tell about the unseen realm, predictions, and perhaps the end of the planet. You'll understand why Ethiopia maintained them and why they're more vital than ever. The Book of Enoch, perhaps the most well-known of the prohibited writings, delves deeply into the cosmic order and celestial regions. However, this is more than just a vision of angels and devils. The book delves into angels' rebellion, relationships with humanity, and final judgment. The first portion of Enoch, known as the Book of Watchers, opens with an unexpected revelation. God dispatched 200 angels, known as the Watchers, to watch over mankind. However, they fell from favor when they got obsessed with human women. These angels, headed by Simjaza, disobeyed God's decree and fell to earth, where they married human women and created the Nephilim, a race of giants depicted as vicious, corrupt, and destructive. What makes this narrative so dramatic is that the fallen angels not only violated God's commandments, but also taught humans forbidden information. They taught humanity the mysteries of warfare, magic, cosmetics, and astrology, all of which are considered corruptions of God's natural order. This knowledge, handed down by fallen angels, created turmoil on earth, and the Nephilim, the violent children of angels and humans, contributed to the world's moral degradation. Their violence and depravity were so overwhelming that God decided to unleash the great flood to rid the earth of their dominion. However, before the deluge, God sent the archangels Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, and Uriel to intercede. Their mission was to catch the disobedient watchers and bind them in the abyss, where they would stay until the day of judgment. These watchers, along with their descendants, were deemed so corrupt that God wiped them off the face of the earth. However, their legacy continues to haunt mankind. Would you want us to create a complete film delving further into the Book of Enoch and the Angels' Rebellion? Please let us know in the comments. Another portion of Enoch, known as the Book of Parables, provides a look into Enoch's apocalyptic visions in which he predicted the arrival of a messianic figure known as the Son of Man. This figure is shown as a heavenly judge who will pass judgment on both mankind and angels. What's remarkable is how much this Son of Man resembles Jesus Christ, who is known by the same title in the New Testament. Enoch's vision depicts a final judgment in which the evil, including the fallen angels, are flung into a flaming abyss while the virtuous are granted everlasting life. This passage of Enoch depicts a dramatic image of the cosmic conflict between good and evil, with angels, devils, and humans all facing their ultimate judgment before God's throne. The astronomical book, a lesser-known part of Enoch, exposes cosmic mysteries. Enoch is shown the divine order of the stars, planets, and seasons, and he describes a solar calendar designed to keep mankind in sync with the divine rhythm of creation. This section discusses the motions of celestial bodies, which are guided by angelic energies. The sun, moon, and stars do not move at random. They follow a certain pattern set by God and enforced by his angels. The text even cautions that humanity must adhere to the solar calendar rather than the lunar calendar in order to be in sync with God's creation. The Ethiopian Orthodox Church still uses a solar calendar today, owing to its ancient origins in Enoch's revelations, the Book of Jubilees, and the solar calendar. Next, we will look at the Book of Jubilees. This is not your typical history book. It is an in-depth account of biblical events from creation to the giving of the law at Sinai, with an emphasis on the spiritual chronology of God's cosmos and the law's everlasting significance. At the core of Jubilees is the idea that time is controlled by a heavenly calendar. On Mount Sinai, God revealed to Moses that the proper measured time is based on a solar cycle, a 364-day year split into 49-year cycles, rather than a lunar calendar, which the Israelites ultimately accepted. The text highlights the importance of following this calendar and keeping the order that God established. Why does this matter? According to Jubilees, misaligning time with a lunar calendar rather than a solar one causes mankind to fall out of sync with God's design. The Ethiopian calendar, which is still used by the Ethiopian Orthodox Church today, is based on this solar cycle, reflecting the conviction that proper timekeeping is crucial for being in harmony with the divine order. Could it be that we have been using the incorrect calendar for centuries? Is the world out of sync with God's original plan? In addition to explaining the cosmic history, Jubilees explains that angels had a significant role in instructing the patriarchs. Long before Moses, angels taught Adam, Noah, and Abraham how to keep the Sabbath, make offerings, and obey purity regulations. These regulations were not limited to the Israelites. They were part of God's everlasting law, which had been revealed to the righteous from the beginning. This intimate engagement of angels shows God's law as ageless. It precedes a Mosaic covenant and stays unchanging. Even before Mount Sinai, individuals in contact with God were aware of and observed his rule, led by the angels of his presence, the Book of Maccabees and heroic resistance. The Maccabees texts include tales of heroic struggle and divine intervention. These works describe the Jewish uprising against foreign rulers, first in Judea under the Seleucids, and then in Egypt under the Ptolemaic dynasty. What's intriguing is that the Ethiopian Orthodox Bible has not just 2, but 3 volumes of Maccabees, each with a distinct viewpoint on faith amid persecution. The first book of Maccabees describes a Maccabean revolt, one of the most well-known incidents in Jewish history. In 167 BC, Antiochus IV Epiphanes, the Seleucid ruler, sought to compel the Jews to leave their faith and embrace Hellenistic practices. In response, Judas Maccabeus launched a guerrilla battle against the Seleucid Empire, miraculously regaining the temple in Jerusalem and restoring Jewish worship. This triumph is still honored today via the Hanukkah holiday, which celebrates a miraculous burning of oil for 8 days during the temple's rededication. The second book of Maccabees focuses on the martyrs, those who sacrifice their lives rather than abandoning their faith in God. The most heartbreaking tale is about the 7 boys and their mother, who were tortured for refusing to consume pork in violation of Jewish tradition. They endured awful deaths one by one, yet each brother declared his trust in the resurrection, certain that they would be rewarded in eternal. This book also recounts visions of angels and heavenly involvement in the Maccabees' fights, bolstering the notion that their successes were due to God's intervention. The third book of Maccabees brings us to Egypt, where the Jewish people were persecuted by Ptolemy IV. The most dramatic scene occurs when Ptolemy orders that the Jews be crushed by intoxicated elephants, but in an incredible turn of events, the elephants turn on the Egyptians, rescuing the Jewish people from imminent death. The Ascension of Isaiah and Apocalyptic visions. The Ascension of Isaiah is one of the most mysterious and apocalyptic books in the Ethiopian Orthodox Bible. It describes the prophet Isaiah's visionary trip through the seven heavens, where he observes the cosmic war between good and evil and gets to prophesy regarding the Messiah's arrival on earth. An angel leads Isaiah through each of the seven heavens, where he meets different grades of angels, the fallen ones, and eventually reaches the seventh heaven, where he sees God's throne. The portrayal of the seraphim, cherubim, and other celestial entities is one of the most thorough depictions of the heavenly order in early Christian literature. The Messiah's descent, however, is the pinnacle of Isaiah's vision. Isaiah sees the Son of God descend from the seventh heaven, taking on human form, leading a lowly life, and eventually dying at the hands of Satan's troops. But the vision does not stop there. Isaiah sees the Messiah's triumph over Satan, resurrection, and return to heaven, where he is elevated as the all-powerful king, the Book of Baruch and the letter of Jeremiah. Finally, we examine the Book of Baruch and the letter of Jeremiah. These two works, written during the Babylonian exile, include profound musings on sin, repentance, and the implications of idolatry. Baruch laments the loss of Jerusalem and makes a passionate confession of sins. The passage underscores that the exile was more than simply a political calamity. It was a consequence of Israel's disobedience toward God. However, Baruch also conveys a message of hope. If the people repent and return to God, they will be restored. The letter of Jeremiah gives a strong warning against idolatry. Jeremiah mocks Babylon's pagan gods, emphasizing their impotence and lifelessness. He encourages the exiles to be loyal to the one true God, who alone can save them from their misery. The significance of banned books today. As we've delved into the tremendous depths of the Ethiopian Orthodox Bible, it's evident that these manuscripts contain much more than simply ancient legends. They include predictions, spiritual insights, and cautions that are relevant not just to the early Christian and Jewish societies, but also today. In truth, many of the concepts addressed in these texts are relevant to the present world and may hold the key to comprehending future prophetic occurrences. One of the most notable aspects of the Ethiopian Orthodox Bible is its thorough examination of the heavenly world and continuous spiritual conflict between good and evil. Books such as the Book of Enoch, the Ascension of Isaiah, and Jubilees provide detailed accounts of angelic hierarchies, fallen angels, and their impact on the earth. But why does this matter now? In many respects, the conflict between good and evil has not been resolved. The concept of spiritual warfare, angels and devils affecting human events, remains a prominent subject in Christian theology. While these prohibited books may seem extraterrestrial or too speculative to some, they give insight on the unseen forces that continue to operate in today's society. According to Ephesians 6 verse 12, our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. Could it be that the Book of Enoch's portrayal of the Watchers, their revolt, and the corruption they disseminated across mankind is still relevant today? Could these books help us grasp the spiritual struggle that is taking on all around us right now? Several forbidden books in the Ethiopian Orthodox Bible include prophecies concerning the end times, and these prophecies seem to provide indications that are consistent with both biblical eschatology and contemporary occurrences. The Book of Enoch contains comprehensive visions of the upcoming judgment, in which both humanity and fallen angels will face their last reckoning. The portrayal of the Son of Man, inflicting divine punishment on the wicked, foreshadows Jesus' messianic position in the New Testament. But Enoch's prophecies do not end there. They feature elaborate depictions of the last fight between good and evil, the defeat of evil powers, and the eventual restoration of justice on earth. Similarly, Isaiah's Ascension paints a vivid picture of Messiah's trip from the heavenly kingdoms to earth, where he confronts Satan before triumphing over him. These visions describe a cosmic struggle that is not limited by time and is now raging as we speak. In today's world, when we are experiencing unprecedented global wars, environmental calamities, and spiritual turmoil, many are wondering whether we are living in the end times. Could the prophecies in these forbidden books signal to the end of human history? Many academics think that we are living in a time when biblical prophecy is being fulfilled, and the texts we've read may provide more insight into what is to come. When we look carefully at contemporary events, wars, earthquakes, and plagues, many of them correspond to the descriptions contained in Enoch's visions of the end times. Another key topic in these forbidden texts, particularly the Book of Jubilees, is the significance of adhering to God's law. While the Western Church distanced itself from the Jewish rules that were so fundamental to early Christianity, the Ethiopian Orthodox Church kept strong links to these old customs. Jubilees detail Sabbath restrictions, food customs, and even the solar calendar, demonstrating a strong devotion to upholding God's precepts in their purest form. These scriptures address critical problems for current Christians, such as whether we are following God's commands. Have we wandered too far from the fundamental values bestowed to mankind from the start? What does it mean to return to these practices? Jubilees maintains that the rules given Adam, Noah, and Abraham were not transitory, but were intended to be followed indefinitely. This raises a challenging issue of whether Christians today should obey the same precepts as the patriarchs. Has mainstream Christianity lost anything by abandoning the rigid obedience of God's laws? Finally, let us discuss what it implies that these texts have been preserved in Ethiopia. As we've seen, the Ethiopian Orthodox Bible is a spiritual treasure that includes many scriptures that Western Christianity has omitted. However, Ethiopia's responsibility in maintaining these manuscripts extends well beyond religious tradition. It is a deep act of spiritual resistance against the powers seeking to obliterate these old truths. During the colonial era, when European powers sought to establish ecclesiastical and political domination over Africa, the Ethiopian Orthodox Church emerged as a symbol of resistance. The preservation of these hallowed books was more than simply religious devotion. It was a proclamation of independence. Ethiopia maintained the original truths of the Bible, even while the rest of the Christian world abandoned them. It implies that the Ethiopian Orthodox Bible may include insights that were intended to be preserved for the specific period in history. As the world confronts enormous problems, maybe it is time to bring these buried manuscripts to light. We've delved deeply into the Ethiopian Orthodox Bible's prohibited texts, from Enoch's mystical visions to Isaiah's predictions and the Maccabees' heroic fight. Each of these works contains mysteries and insights that challenge our understanding of the Bible and Christian history. However, these manuscripts may be more than simply remnants of the past. They may provide the keys to comprehending the future. As we confront a world fraught with uncertainty, spiritual discontent, and rising global war, it's worth wondering, have we been missing something? Could these forbidden books help us grasp the spiritual wars taking place all around us? Could they provide light on the end times and God's ultimate purpose for the world? Thanks for watching Scripture's Paths. If this investigation of the Ethiopian Orthodox Bible has opened your eyes to new possibilities, please subscribe, and share the video with others.